Today, it's safe to say that more people own firearms than at any other time in history. The reason for owning firearms may vary from person to person. Some own guns for recreation, others for competition, hunting, collecting, target shooting, and of course, many people own firearms for self-defense. It is a fact that more people are involved in some aspect of the shooting sports than most other sports combined. As firearm ownership increases, in particular handgun ownership, so does the need for handgun owners to be skilled in safe, responsible handgun shooting and storage. Hi, I'm Lenny Magill.
And I'm Tammy Magill. In this program, we'll show you step-by-step, easy-to-follow information regarding handgun basics for self-defense and target shooting.
We'll cover two of the most popular styles of handguns. The revolver, known for its revolving cylinder, and the semi-automatic, known for its high-capacity magazine and its automatic reloading capability.
Then we'll look at handgun shooting techniques that will make you a more accurate and confident shooter.
Finally, we'll discuss self-defense and how to use a handgun in an emergency situation. But first, the most important aspect of firearm ownership is safety. Firearms are like any other type of machinery. Used properly, they'll provide years of enjoyment. But if a firearm is not treated with respect, if you play around with a gun or become complacent with safety procedures for just even a second, a life could be lost and your life could be shattered as you know it. Let's review the 10 basic rules of firearm safety used by the National Rifle Association and most other shooting organizations.
Rule number 1. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction and always treat every gun as if it were loaded. This is the primary rule of gun safety. A safe direction means that the gun is pointed so that even if it were to go off, it would not cause injury, damage, or death. By treating every gun as if it were loaded, you could avoid the most common mistake that leads to an accidental shooting. Never point a gun, loaded or unloaded, at anything or anybody that you do not intend to shoot.
Rule number 2. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to shoot. You can rest your finger on the trigger guard or along the side of the gun until you're ready to fire. But always keep your finger off of the trigger until you're ready to shoot.
Rule number 3. Always keep the gun unloaded until you are ready to use it for your chosen activity. Whenever you pick up a gun, immediately open the action to check and see if it is empty or loaded. Later in this program, we will show you how to do just that with a variety of handguns.
Rule number 4. Know how to use a gun safely and properly. Before handling and shooting a gun, learn how it operates. Know its basic parts, how to safely open and close the action, and how to load and unload the gun.
Rule number 5. When shooting, know your target area and what is beyond. This means observing your prospective area of fire before you shoot. Never fire in a direction in which there are people, houses, cars, or livestock. Keep in mind that modern ammunition can travel up to 1 mile. If you are shooting in the direction of a hill, be careful not to fire above it or beyond. And never shoot bullets up into the air. They will come back down at deadly speeds and you could even kill yourself.
Rule number 6. Never use alcohol or drugs before or while shooting. Now this is fairly obvious. Many accidental shootings and deaths are caused because of careless handling of firearms associated with drinking or with drugs. You wouldn't drink and drive, and you certainly shouldn't drink and shoot. Don't become a statistic.
Rule number 7. Be sure the gun is well maintained and safe to operate. Just like other tools, guns need regular maintenance to remain in good working order.
Rule number 8. Use only the correct ammunition for your gun. Do not shoot a gun unless you are absolutely sure you have the proper ammunition. Only the manufacturer's specified ammunition can be fired safely in that gun. Again, if you have a question, check with your local gun store.
Rule number 9. When shooting, or when you're around a shooting range, always wear eye and ear protection. Guns are loud and can cause permanent hearing damage. They can also emit debris and hot gases that could cause serious eye injury. Protect the only eyes and ears you have.
Rule number 10. Store guns so they are not accessible to children and unauthorized persons. In many states, it is a law that if your firearm is not stored safely and it's stolen, mishandled by a child, or used in a crime or an accidental shooting, you, the gun owner, could be held liable. The most common type of handgun is the revolver. The revolver is known for its revolving cylinder, and this is what holds the ammunition. There are 4 basic parts to this handgun: the barrel, the frame, the cylinder, and the trigger group. Barrels for revolvers are available in many different lengths, most commonly 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, and 8 inches. There are 2 different types of revolvers: single action, like this Freedom Arms Casull 454, and double action, like this Smith & Wesson Model 66 357 Magnum. And it's important that you know the difference about how they operate. First, let's take a look at the single action revolver. This is the type of handgun that was made famous in Western movies. It looks similar to any other type of revolver, with a few exceptions. Notice that the trigger is very close to the rear of the trigger guard. This is because the trigger performs only one action, to drop the hammer. Hence the name, single action. To fire this gun, you pull the hammer back to the cocked position with your thumb. Then, aim the gun at your intended target and engage the trigger with a very slight pressure. The hammer will fall, and the gun will fire. To shoot again, you must pull the hammer back once again. This advances the cylinder to the next chamber, which holds a new cartridge, and then again you pull the trigger. This is the Casull 454 single action revolver. Now, to load this gun, first you want to open the loading gate, which is usually located here on the right side. You can do that with your thumb. This gives you access to the chambers. Now, to revolve the cylinder, first you must half-cock the hammer, and you'll hear this on the first click. This allows you to rotate the cylinder, which gives access to each one of the chambers. To load, simply take your cartridge and drop it into each cylinder, and then you advance to the next one, another cartridge, next chamber, and finally the 4th chamber. Then you would close the loading gate, and this is where you're going to be very careful. Get a firm grip on the pistol, thumb on the hammer, cock it all the way back, and then hold on strong and release the trigger and slowly let the hammer down onto the firing pin. Now, the gun is loaded, so you always, of course, want to keep it pointed in a safe direction. To unload, you just reverse the procedure. Open the loading gate, half-cock the hammer, you hear that click, advance to the first chamber, and then you use the extraction rod. Now, the extraction rod is spring-activated. You can use your index finger, and you pull back on it, and it pushes the round right out of the chamber. Then you advance to the next chamber. Once again. And for our last round with the extraction rod. And you'll see a good shot of the extraction rod here as it came up all the way through the chamber. Now, single action revolvers are slightly more difficult and slower to use than double action revolvers. However, with practice, you can become very proficient in their use, as demonstrated in this video clip from the End of Trail Cowboy Competition.
You ready?
Competing with a handgun is one of the most enjoyable sports you can undertake, and there are competitions for almost every type of handgun made. In this particular tournament, competitors shoot guns from the Old West era: single action revolvers, lever action rifles, and side-by-side shotguns. You'll notice that this shooter is using his left thumb to cock the hammer of the revolver. They are scored on speed as well as accuracy. Now, here's Dennis Ming. He's the overall champion at the 1993 End of Trail Cowboy Shoot-Off.
Everything, and then hold.
The double-action revolver is named so because one trigger pull performs two distinctive actions. As you pull the trigger, the action rotates the cylinder, and as you pull the trigger further, it drops the hammer. There is no need to cock the hammer with your thumb. It is cocked by the first action of the trigger, and the second action causes the hammer to fall, which in turn fires the gun. Most double-action revolvers can be fired single-action style by cocking the hammer back all the way and then squeezing the trigger. The double-action revolver is the preferred gun for beginning shooters and basic self-defense. You will notice there is usually not a safety on revolvers because of the action needed to cock the hammer. Double-action revolvers are very easy to operate and to fire multiple shots. Most modern revolvers are infallible, and if kept in good condition, they may never break and could even last a lifetime. To load the double-action revolver, simply drop one cartridge into each chamber and then close the cylinder. The handgun is now ready to fire.
Now, in loading a double-action revolver, it's extremely important that you follow the basic rule of safety, either loading or unloading. Always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. And that way, no matter what happens, you won't have any bad accidents. Once again, keep that muzzle pointed downrange as you close the cylinder. Now, there's three different ways to pull the trigger on this double-action gun. You can do a continuous, smooth trigger pull, and kind of just let it roll straight back and surprise you. The key here is to pull straight back, not to yank the gun one way or the other with too much pressure that way or too much pressure this way. The key, once again, is to roll straight back. Now, another way to shoot this gun, and this has happened a lot in competition, is to stage the trigger. There's really two different functions here. One is to rotate the cylinder to the next chamber, and the next function of the trigger is to drop the hammer. So I'll stage the trigger, pull back, and pause. Now all you have is just a little bit more pressure to drop the hammer. This is called staging the trigger. Pull back and stop, and pull. And you can be very accurate that way because you're not pulling the sights off with the trigger pull. The last way is to thumb cock the hammer, much like a single action revolver. Back all the way. Now there's a very slight pressure to drop the hammer. And that's the thumb cocking method. Either way, they're all very accurate, and it's basically a personal preference and depending upon what you're doing with the gun at that time.
There are many different makes and models of revolvers, and they each have their advantages and disadvantages depending on their intended use. There are large revolvers and small revolvers. Some are meant for hunting. Some are designed for target and competition shooting, while others are intended to be carried for long periods of time in a concealed position. If you are purchasing a handgun for self-defense, we have several suggestions. First, make sure that you are buying a gun of high quality. Purchase a handgun from one of the major manufacturers, Smith & Wesson, Colt, Taurus, and Ruger, to name a few. There are many top-quality revolvers available. Second, buy a gun that feels good in your hand. Not too big, not too small. Smith & Wesson is now making revolvers designed specifically for women, with a smaller grip and lighter overall weight. For self-defense, we recommend that you use a revolver that has a 2 or 4 inch barrel length. It will be lighter and easier to bring into action than a longer pistol. And finally, purchase a handgun in a suitable caliber. Whether for hunting, target shooting, or self-defense, there is a correct caliber that will help you maximize your efforts. Now let's take a look at semi-automatic pistols.
The semi-automatic pistol is a much more complicated handgun than a revolver. There are many moving parts and springs to keep it functioning properly, and it takes more strength and skill to shoot semi-automatic pistols. The semi-automatic pistol is called semi-automatic because of its ability to automatically cycle a new round into the chamber after a shot is fired. There are 5 major parts to this firearm: the barrel, the frame, the slide, the trigger group, and the magazine. The magazine holds the ammunition, and depending on the make and model of the handgun, it can hold 5 to 15 rounds or even more. Semi-automatic pistols are available in many different calibers, and like revolvers, are available in single action and double action. First, let's examine a single action semi-automatic pistol.
The first thing you must do when you handle any firearm is to check and see if it is unloaded. Once the magazine release button is depressed, pull the magazine from the bottom of the frame. Then, pull back the slide to extract any round that is still in the chamber. Be sure to keep your finger out and away from the ejection port when you pull back the slide. You can lock the slide back with a slide lock lever located on this pistol on the left side of the frame. Now you can release the slide and, with the pistol pointed in a safe direction, drop the hammer on the empty chamber by pulling the trigger. Now you have an unloaded semi-automatic pistol.
This is a Colt .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol. Now to load this gun, you want to keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. And you take a loaded magazine and insert it into the magazine well located at the bottom of the grip of the pistol. You'll feel and hear a distinctive click when it is properly seated. Then you would want to pull back the slide, and I like to grasp it with my thumb and forefinger of my left hand. Pull back the slide all the way, and then let it go under the internal springs that are located inside the slide. A cartridge will be picked up by this return action, and now there is a cartridge resting inside of the chamber. You'll note here that the hammer is now cocked back. It is now ready to drop on the firing pin with just a slight pressure on the trigger, like so. Now, if you're not ready yet to shoot this gun, you can apply the manual safety, which is this lever right here. It's usually found on the left-hand side of most pistols. All semi-automatic pistols, or most semi-automatic pistols, have a safety similar to this that is located on this left-hand side of the frame. Now, once again, even though the safety is applied, you should always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction, because after all, the safety is just a piece of steel, and someday it could break, and you don't want to rely on the safety that would cause an accidental shooting. Now, to shoot this gun, again, release the safety, apply a slight pressure to the trigger, and squeeze. Now, when you shoot the last round, the slide will lock back, showing an empty chamber. You can see here that the slide is locked back. What you would do is drop the magazine, make sure that it is in fact empty, and then visually inspect inside the chamber to make sure that there are no rounds that are left or caught or somehow didn't get extracted. You visually want to look in there. And from there, you can lower the slide back by pulling back slightly and then releasing, and then drop the hammer on an empty chamber. The gun is now ready to be put away and stored for future use.
Semi-automatic pistols are also available in double action. This is a 9mm double-action semi-automatic pistol. It operates the same as a single-action semi-automatic, except that the trigger, like in a double-action revolver, can perform 2 actions. 1, to cock the hammer, and 2, to drop the hammer to start the firing sequence. Or You may operate the gun like a single-action semi-automatic pistol and manually cock the hammer and depress the trigger. The trigger simply drops the hammer and starts the firing action. Most double-action pistols have a decocking lever along with or instead of a safety. This decocking lever enables you to lower the hammer without striking the firing pin. This allows you to carry the gun with a round in the chamber, with the hammer down. Always remember to keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. To fire this gun, just apply pressure to the trigger and the hammer will cock and then fall to begin the firing sequence.
Now let's take a look at how to load the magazine of a semi-automatic pistol. This is the Glock Model 22 and this is its magazine. It holds 15 rounds of 40 caliber ammunition. First, note that there is a forward position for the magazine. The open end will be facing towards the barrel. The magazine is placed into the magazine well facing towards the barrel. Now the ammunition is placed in the magazine with the bullet end facing towards this opening. What you want to do is take a cartridge in your hand and place it on the magazine follower, which has a spring inside of it, and press down slightly so that the bullet is caught in the magazine lips. Then take another round and using your left thumb or your right thumb, depending on what hand you are, push down slightly on the loaded cartridge. Take another cartridge, place it on top of the other one, push down and back, and it too will be caught within the magazine lips. Again, down and back. Now you can repeat this procedure until the magazine is completely full. And most magazines have what they call witness holes in the rear to tell you how many rounds are actually loaded. Now newer magazines will have newer springs and they in turn are harder to operate than an older magazine. But once the magazine gets broken in, it is a little easier to load. If you have any questions about this loading process, loading the rounds into the magazine chamber, what kind of rounds, what the position is, please go down to your gun store and ask the owner or one of the clerks. They'll be happy to help you out.
There are many different types of semi-automatic pistols available to you, and each is designed for a particular purpose. Along with a huge selection of handguns is a large selection of ammunition and calibers for both semi-automatic pistols and revolvers. Here's a look at some. The 25 caliber, the 22 caliber, 380, the 40 caliber, the 45 caliber, 9 millimeter, the 10 millimeter, and there are several others. When purchasing a semi-automatic pistol, we recommend that you buy a firearm through your local dealer made by one of the major manufacturers. If you are purchasing a handgun for self-defense, we recommend that you buy one of the larger calibers, either a 9 millimeter or a 45. If you are a new gun owner, we suggest that you take a class or get personal instruction from a qualified instructor. One of the advantages a semi-automatic pistol has over a revolver is increased ammunition capacity. Most new generation semi-automatic pistols can carry 12, 13, or 14 rounds. This Glock pistol can carry 18 rounds of 9 millimeter ammunition. However, there are disadvantages with semi-automatic pistols. One, the gun is much more complex to operate, with more moving parts than a revolver. 2, it is difficult to load and prepare to fire. 3, semi-automatics can malfunction for several reasons: bad ammunition, poor shooting grip, or flinching while pulling the trigger. It is very important that you incorporate proper shooting techniques when shooting a semi-automatic pistol or a revolver.
Before you actually begin shooting, you must have the proper safety equipment. Standard items, such as a quality pair of shooting glasses and proper ear protection, like these ear muffs or these foam earplugs, are mandatory. There are 4 basic fundamentals of pistol shooting: grip, stance, sight alignment and sight picture, and trigger control. All 4 are equally important for accurate and consistent shooting. Now, the grip you use will be what feels most comfortable for you, regardless if it's a revolver or a semi-automatic pistol. Using an unloaded gun, hold the gun in your non-shooting hand, and with your shooting hand, grasp the grip with the web between your thumb and forefinger as high on the frame as possible, keeping your finger out of the trigger area. This is a one-handed grip, and it can be used in shooting in emergency or self-defense, and also for target shooting. The key is not to grip the gun too tightly so that your fingers fatigue. Now, for accurate controlled fire, it's probably best to use a two-handed grip. Take your non-shooting hand and wrap it around the shooting hand with your fingers all the way around. Now, I'm going to close the cylinder here so you can get a better idea what this looks like. You've got your shooting hand, one-handed hold. Take the non-shooting hand and wrap it all the way around there and keep your thumb down and out of the way. You don't want to wrap your thumb up around this way because that's really not as comfortable and not as strong that if you keep this left hand here. What you're doing is this left hand is basically a support hand. It's supporting the pistol when you bring it up to fire. It's supporting it for recoil. And once again, you will actually want to hold a little tighter with this left hand than you do with your right hand because it'll allow you to control recoil and at the same time not fatigue your right hand, which is basically the hand you're using to pull the trigger with. One-handed shooting is used in some competition shooting and in emergency self-defense situations. The key here is to have a firm grip on the gun and a strong wrist. Now you can shoot from here, or you can shoot with the gun all the way up here. Once again, the key is to have a good grip on the gun and have a firm, strong wrist so that you're able to follow through all the way. Now, using the two-handed grip, you can shoot from a variety of positions. You can shoot from here, you can shoot from here, and you can shoot with the gun all the way up. Either way, it's very effective, as you'll see, depending upon what situation you have. The two-handed grip is the preferred method because you have much more control of the handgun.
Stance is the next item in our formula for accurate shooting. This involves your body position when shooting. Your feet should be shoulder-width apart, and your weight should be equally distributed on both feet. Bend your knees slightly and relax your muscles. You should be leaning forward, but not too much so that you lose your balance. Your comfort is very important, and you should be able to stand in this position for quite some time. Some individuals like to have both feet squared up to an imaginary line. Others like to have one leg slightly in back of the other. In my case, I like to have my left leg slightly behind my right leg. Because I shoot with my left hand, it feels better to have my stance tilted to the left. The keys to stance are stability, weight transfer, balance, and comfort.
Another important part of a good shooting stance is the position of your arms. There are 3 recognized arm positions for shooting. The isosceles stance, where both arms are fully extended and the pistol is centered between your arms. The Weaver stance, where your shooting arm is completely straight and pushes outward, and your other arm is bent and pulling slightly inward. This in and out pulling process helps to stabilize the gun. And the last arm position is the modified Weaver stance. This is basically in between the Weaver and the isosceles stance. The shooting arm straight and the support arm bent less. All of these positions are acceptable, and it really comes down to personal preference. The key here is to find a position you like, to practice with it, and then to stay with it. When it comes to shooting accurately, there is nothing more important than sight alignment and sight picture. Most modern handguns have a variation of the partridge type sights. These consist of a vertical post or blade as the front sight and a horizontal blade with a notch in the center as the rear sight. To correctly line these sights, you place the top of the front sight level with the flat top of the rear sight. The front sight should be centered between the sides of the rear sight's notch. Now, 2 factors come into play with correct sight picture. First, your eyes should be focused on the front sight, not the target and not the rear sight. Your eyes should be focused on the front sight. By focusing on the front sight, you are better able to control the muzzle, which, after all, is where the bullet leaves anyways. And that is what is very critical. Focusing on the front sight is the key to accurate shooting. Now, you must learn to hold the front sight onto your target with either a 6 o'clock hold or a center hold. A 6 o'clock hold is where the front sight is just under and touching your point of aim. A center hold is where the front sight is actually on top of your point of aim. Now, depending on your eyesight, the distance shooting, the size of your target, and your personal preference, you can practice the style you like best. Guns come from the factory, usually with a 6 o'clock hold for this reason. If you are shooting at a long distance, the size of the front sight in relation to your target makes it hard to see the center of the target. Now let's review sight alignment and sight picture. The sights are properly aligned with the front sight centered between the rear sight notch. This is the proper sight picture, with your sights on the target with a 6 o'clock hold. Your objective is to center the front blade properly in relation to your target. Then you just squeeze the trigger so that the sight picture remains a constant while the gun fires.
A common misconception is for shooters to close one of their eyes while aiming. While this may help you concentrate, it actually decreases your depth perception and your ability to focus. By keeping both eyes open, you will be able to shoot better and have a better chance of hitting your target. First, you must determine which is your master or dominant eye. This is easy to do. Take your unloaded gun and put it in front of you as if you were shooting. Keep both eyes open and concentrate on the front sight. Now close your left eye and open it, and then close your right eye and open it. You will notice that the target you are aiming at seems to move or jump with one eye and not the other. The eye that the target remains consistent is the master eye, and this is the eye that you should use when shooting. Even while keeping both eyes open, you should concentrate on the master eye.
We've looked at grip, stance, and sight picture. Now it's time to pull them all together with the proper trigger squeeze. Your trigger finger is your index finger on your shooting hand. Place your index finger into the trigger guard area onto the trigger. Use the first pad on this finger because it is the most sensitive pad of your finger and it gives you the most control. The object of a proper trigger squeeze is to place steady, even pressure on the trigger and to pull straight back while the trigger performs its action. Once again, pulling straight back smoothly and evenly. Try not to yank on the trigger because you could yank one way or another and pull the gun off sight picture.
Now, let's review the 4 basic shooting techniques and put them all together. First, safety. Make sure you are shooting in a safe direction and that you have eye and ear protection. And always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction with your finger off the trigger. Next, load your revolver by opening the cylinder and placing 6 rounds into the chambers. Now hold the gun with a proper grip and assume a comfortable stance with a slight weight-forward posture. Aim the front sight at the target and make sure you can see the front sight between the rear notch. Once you are sure of your target, place your trigger finger on the trigger and squeeze. Nice and easy. Once the gun fires, remember to follow through by maintaining your position. Now, just repeat.
With a semi-automatic pistol, first load the magazine. Next, with the gun pointed in a safe direction, insert the magazine into the frame and make sure it is seated. Pull back the slide and then release it to load around into the chamber. Now, hold the gun with the proper grip, making sure that your left thumb is out of the way of the slide. Assume the proper stance and line up your sights, making sure to focus on the front sight and to place the front sight in the notch of the rear sight. Finally, place your trigger finger on the trigger and squeeze slowly until the gun fires. Follow through and repeat. Some people will find it difficult to pull the trigger on some double-action revolvers and to work the slide on some semi-automatic pistols. If you're experiencing this kind of trouble, then this gun is not for you, especially in a self-defense situation. But don't worry, there are many different types of handguns available, and certainly one you will find that is ideal for you and your circumstances. Many of you have or are going to purchase a handgun for self-defense and home protection. We have several basic suggestions concerning self-defense and handguns. First, make sure you are purchasing a handgun that's suitable for self-defense. A quality handgun made by a major manufacturer that is at least .38 caliber or larger. And while we're on the subject, let's discuss caliber. The term caliber generally refers to the diameter of the bullet or the diameter of the barrel, which is also known as the bore of the gun. Caliber is measured in thousandths of an inch or in metric millimeters. For example, a .45 caliber pistol has a barrel diameter of 0.45 inches. A 9 millimeter pistol has a barrel diameter of 9 millimeters. Likewise, a .22 caliber firearm has a barrel diameter of 0.22 inches, while a .40 caliber handgun has a barrel diameter of 0.40 inches. It's safe to say that the larger the caliber, the more effective the handgun will be for self-defense shooting. And now that we're talking about caliber, let's take a look at the different types of ammunition that are available and how they relate to you for self-defense and target shooting. There are three common types of bullets: exposed lead, jacketed or full metal jacket, and partially jacketed bullets. These come in a variety of different configurations. Round-nosed lead bullets are used for target shooting. Wad-cutter bullets are also used for target shooting because they cut a very round hole in paper targets. Full metal jacket bullets are labeled FMJ and are used in military and some law enforcement applications, as well as for plinking with everyday shooters. And for self-defense, we recommend jacketed hollow point ammunition, usually labeled on the box JHP. Jacketed hollow point bullets have shown in tests to have excellent expansion properties. This is very desirable in self-defense situations for two important reasons. Jacketed hollow point bullets will expand to almost 2 times their original diameter. This slows the bullet down and helps inhibit over-penetration. Additionally, all of the bullet's energy is expended in the target you are shooting at. This greatly enhances stopping power. Here's a demonstration that will illustrate the differences in shooting full metal jacket ammunition and hollow point ammunition in a self-defense situation. All right, first we're going to try the 9mm military ball round. We're going to load it up in this Taurus PT99 pistol. And we're going to shoot this 6-pound ham that's downrange here. We're going to see what the military ball ammunition does to that ham. All right, you can see our results are somewhat predictable. The 9mm ball round went right through the ham, and not a whole lot of deformation to the ham itself. In fact, looking at the exit wound in the back here, you can see there's a wound there, but not much of a hole. And in fact, just blew out the last back half of that. The round went straight through and really didn't even knock the ham off of the chair that we have it on. All right, next round we're going to try is this 115 grain silver tip. It's a Winchester round. It's a very commonly used 9mm self-defense round. Let's see how it does out of this Taurus PT99. Once again, shooting that ham down there about 10 feet downrange. Okay, you can see that the silver tip round actually had a lot more impact here on this ham. In fact, it blew apart about a quarter of the ham itself. That silver tip round expanded more, transferred more of its energy to the ham, and just blew a chunk of it right off. What I'd like you to understand from that last demonstration is that you should always use jacketed hollow point ammunition for self-defense. What you saw in that last demonstration is that the full metal jacket ammo went right through the object and created a very small wound channel. Now, in a living body, you'll have a tendency to close up around that and it'll have less stopping power. Additionally, the over-penetration of the full metal jacket ammo provides a potential hazard because the bullet will have the ability to go right through a wall and into a potential bystander or innocent bystander behind that wall. So the jacketed hollow point ammunition will expand much greater and create a larger wound channel, hence having more stopping power and the ability to put someone in their tracks and keep them away from you. At the same time, it will have less ability to over-penetrate and to go through a wall and into an innocent bystander. And for these reasons, we recommend that you use jacketed hollow point ammunition in a self-defense situation. Now here's a look at some excellent choices for self-defense ammunition.
Make sure you're familiar with the firearm you purchase and that you know how and are physically able to operate it. A new Colt 45 semi-automatic is a great gun for self-defense if you're familiar with it and you are able to operate it. But this gun requires some strength to pull back the slide. I suggest if you are purchasing a handgun for home protection and you don't shoot a lot, you should buy a 6-shot, 4-inch double-action revolver.
Third, you must practice with your firearm. Granted, you may purchase your handgun, load it, and put it in your safe box and never have to use it for self-defense, and that would be great. But if you need to use it, you'll be a lot better off if you're proficient with your firearm.
Purchasing a firearm is a responsibility that you must take very seriously. The gun must be readily accessible to you, yet it must be safe and secure from children and unauthorized individuals. Too many children are injured in firearms accidents each year. It's not enough to tell your children not to touch your gun. Children are very curious. And please, don't store your gun under the bed or in the closet thinking your children won't find it. What if they do? You must have some sort of locking storage device if you have children or if children visit your home. If you're not willing to do this, then please, don't buy a gun. It's not worth the risk.
Fifth, know the laws of your community. Every state has different laws regarding the use of firearms in home protection and self-defense. It's safe to say that if you feel your life is being threatened, you may use your firearm in self-defense. But if a burglar's running out of your house with your TV set in his hand and you shoot him in the back, you're going to be in trouble. It's better to let him go and call the police. A good reference to this situation is the video Deadly Force, Firearms, the Law, and You. Here are a few interesting statistics taken from an FBI report on firearms and self-defense. 80% of all civilian self-defense gunfights occur in the home, and 70% occur in the dark. 85% of the time, only one shot is fired, and the bad guy gets away on his own. 45% of the time, the one shot actually hits the intruder, and the rest are misses. Only 15% of these shootings result in the death of the intruder. In the majority of cases, when the intruder is shot, what usually happens is that he'll check into a local hospital for treatment. At that time, most of the suspects are picked up by police for two reasons. The homeowner called the police and reported the intruder and the gunfire, and two, hospitals, clinics, emergency rooms, and doctors are required by law to report gunfire injuries to police. So this double-check system usually catches a suspect, and that's why you as a homeowner should report a shooting incident of this nature. Now, here are some suggestions on how to handle a self-defense emergency situation once you're alerted to an intruder in your home. If you are able, call 911. Either you or someone else should call law enforcement. Even if you just dial 911 and leave the phone off the hook, they are trained to listen for sounds of distress. Next, secure your firearm and other family members. Listen for sounds of forced entry and movement. It is not a good idea to go searching through the house unless other members of your family are in danger. Your best tactic would be to inform the intruder that you have a gun and that you have called police. Yell it loud and with force.
I have a gun! I've called the police! Get out of my house!
If you must walk around the house, go slowly and keep the firearm close to your body and use a two-handed grip. Keep the gun pointed out and away from your body parts. With both hands on the gun, you are less likely to shoot yourself and you'll have more control of the firearm. If you do confront an intruder, keep your distance. Try and place something between you and the intruder, such as a couch, countertop, chair, or table. Order them to leave and repeat.
I have a gun! I've called the police! Get out of my house! Get out!
If the intruder advances towards you and you feel your life is in danger, you may have to shoot to protect your life. Walking through your home with a loaded gun is one of the most dangerous things you could ever do. We recommend, of course, staying inside the room, dialing 911 and securing your firearm. But if you must walk through the house, here's a couple tips that may help you out. One, make sure that it is in fact an intruder, not a family member or a friend of a family member or one of your children or a relative or someone that you really wouldn't want to shoot, a neighbor coming over to knock on your door. Be absolutely positive that it is an intruder. Which brings us to the next point. When you do walk through the home, keep your finger out of the trigger guard area and away from the trigger. You know, it's dark, and if you're walking through the home and you actually stub your toe on a wall, or if you trip on a toy and your finger is on the trigger, there's a good chance you could jerk it off accidentally, and a tragedy could happen. Next, keep the gun close into your body. There's no need to walk around the house with a gun out like this. The idea is if the gun's close to your body, you have more control of it. If the gun's out here, there's a good chance an intruder can knock it away. They can steal it from you. By keeping it close to your body, you have a lot more control. You have a lot more strength on the gun. Plus, you can shoot from this position very accurately. You can actually, in a gunfight situation, because most home gunfights are between 7 and 10 feet, shoot from this position very accurately. Even if you have to, bring the gun up very rapidly in this position. Now, next time you're out at the range, practice shooting from here, both with two hands and one hand, and you'll be surprised how accurate you can be in a self-defense situation, 7 to 10 feet. And finally, when approaching a corner, try not to fall into the Hollywood trap of getting up real close and peeking around. What could happen is the gun could be knocked away, it could be taken away, or you could get a punch in the face. Here's how to approach in a corner. Use distance. Get to the far opposite wall, and as you come up, sneak around and look. The idea, once again, is to keep your distance from a potential intruder. Here, it'll give you time to respond in case someone's over there. And once again, Distance is your friend in this type of encounter. It gives you time to respond to the bad guys and not to respond if it's someone you really don't want to shoot. The most important thing you can do whenever you're handed a firearm or you pick a firearm up off the table is to check to see that it is unloaded. Before me, I've got about 19 different handguns that we're going to do just that. We'll go over each one of them. We'll talk about the make and manufacture of each gun, and then, of course, we'll show you how to unload them. But before we get started, I can't emphasize enough the importance of having a safe storage box in which to keep your guns at home, keep them away from children and unauthorized access. This is a box made by Palmer Metal Products. It holds 2 different handguns, and you can have access to this box within seconds, as demonstrated here. In this box, I've got 2 different firearms. This is a Taurus PT-99 9mm pistol. It is a double action pistol, and the way you want to go ahead and work with this, of course, and with any gun, is to keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, keep your finger out and away from the trigger area while you first pick it up. The next step is to drop the magazine. To do that, I'll show you here. There's a magazine release button located on the left side of the frame. You can push the button down, and the magazine becomes disengaged and actually will fall out. And as it falls out, you'll see that there are rounds in this magazine. So, now again, I don't know if it's loaded or not. I've got to go ahead and, once again, maintain a safe direction, finger out of the trigger. I've got to pull the slide back, and I'm going to pull it back, and I'm going to look inside there, and I'm going to see there are no rounds. Now, for television purposes, I'm going to go ahead and pull back and let you see. This is what you need to see. You need to see an empty chamber, empty barrel. And I'll let the slide back down. I'll point the gun in a safe direction. I'm going to pull the hammer, and now I know I have a safe, unloaded pistol that I can store or use for later purposes. Next gun I have here in the box is a Ruger Security 6 revolver. This is a .357 6-shot revolver, double action revolver, as you can see because of the placement of the trigger. Once again, keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction, finger out and away from the trigger. I'm going to turn the gun over and show you that on the left side of the frame there is a cylinder release latch. I will push this latch down, depress it straight down. With my other hand, I'm going to reach through and push the cylinder out. And then I have 6 rounds that are inside there, and I'm going to make sure you get a shot of that. Now, to get those rounds out, you can do one of 2 things. You can just turn upside down, and a lot of times they'll just fall out, depending upon how clean the gun is. And if they wouldn't have fallen out, what I would do is I would use my other hand and I would depress the extractor rod, and the rounds would come out with the star extractor, as you can see right there in that shot. So now this gun is basically unloaded, and I'm going to put it back down on the table. Next gun we're going to look at is a Beretta. This is a Jetfire. This is a .25 caliber automatic pistol. It's a single action automatic. Once again, keeping the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, keeping my finger away from the trigger. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to show you on the left side of the frame, there is a magazine release button, and it's located down here at the bottom of the frame, on the back of the frame. I will push the button down, and out comes the magazine. Pull the magazine out. It is unloaded. Now, with this style of pistol, it has a very unique feature. It's got a pop-top barrel, and basically there's a lever here, again, on the left side of the frame that I can push out, and you'll see the barrel pop up. You see that? So you push this down, the barrel pops right up. Now you can visually inspect the barrel. You'll see there are no rounds inside that chamber, this being the barrel. This is the chamber, the first part of the barrel right up here. And this gun is now empty and ready to drop, and I will go ahead and put it down. Next gun is a Taurus PT-22. This is a double action only pistol, and you can see that this gun is very unique because it is, once again, double action only, and it has a bobbed hammer. This is a kind of a carry gun, a gun you could put in your purse or in your pocket. And first thing I'm going to do, once again, keeping the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, I've got to drop the magazine out. Keep my finger away and out of the trigger guard area there. There's, on the left side of the frame, there is a button where you can depress. And this one I have to actually pull the magazine out, and you'll see that there are no rounds in the magazine. This gun, being similar to the Beretta we just looked at, also has a popped-up barrel. And I will depress the button right here, and the barrel will open up. And I can visually look down into the barrel, into the chamber, and see there are no rounds in there. And once again, I know that this gun is unloaded. Now that it is unloaded, let me come back here and look at this Beretta. You can see these guns are very similar to one another. They were basically designed off the same design. Taurus is the PT-22 here in my right hand. My left hand is the Beretta. This one fires the .25 caliber. This fires the .22 caliber. Both of these are considered what you'd consider pocket guns. Now let's look at this Taurus gun. You can see it has the bobbed hammer. You could basically stick that in your pocket and no one would know. And that's basically what it's all about. This is a concealed carry gun. Put it in a purse, put it in a pocket, if, of course, you have the proper permutation. So that's what this is all about. This is the PT-22. Next gun we're going to look at is a Smith & Wesson 5-shot revolver. This is a Model 36. It's a very lightweight gun. It is also a carry gun or a concealment gun. It has only 5-shot. It shoots the 38 special cartridge. Once again, keep my finger out and away from the trigger guard area. I'm going to maintain the gun like this. Looking on the left side of the frame, you'll see there is a cylinder release latch. On the Smith & Wesson guns, you want to push this forward, then with the other hand, reach through and move the cylinder out. Now I can see that there are no rounds in there. And I always like to turn it just to kind of get a visual inspection, look at each and every one. And now I know that this gun is, in fact, unloaded. I can close it back up and put it back on the table. At this time, I want to tell you that if I were to pick up any of these guns, again, right now, that I just looked at, I'll look at this gun again. The first thing I would do is release the cylinder release latch, push the cylinder open, and check it. In fact, if I was going to hand the gun to somebody, I would prefer to hand them the gun with the cylinder already out. That's a very proper way to do that. And never will I rely on my memory or my thought process to think that the gun is unloaded. Never. I will always open the gun up and always inspect that it is, in fact, unloaded. Here's the next gun. This is another Smith & Wesson revolver. It's a Model 60. This is a 5-shot 38 special revolver. It is also considered a carry gun. It's got a very short barrel. It has a bobbed hammer, and you can see that the hammer is bobbed. It is actually gone. Compared to the Model 36 we just looked at, this is the hammer here, and this one is bobbed. And that is, once again, to facilitate carrying the gun. You can actually put this in your pocket. You can see that it's a lightweight gun. You could walk around like that, and really no one could tell you have it. And when you need to get it out, it comes out. And because the hammer's bobbed, it will come out of your pants and not snag up on you. Same thing if it was in a purse or even in a holster. If you're pulling out of a holster, you don't want it to snag up on your jacket. So once again, with this gun, keeping my finger in the safe direction, the gun pointing in the safe direction, finger out of the trigger guard area, what I'm going to do is I'm going to depress the cylinder release latch here with my other hand, come through, open up the cylinder, and visually inspect that there are no rounds in there. And I'll put that down, move on to our next pistol. Let's look at some single action revolvers real quick. This is a Colt 22 Scout. This is what it's called, and this gun has, it is single action only. You can tell by the placement of that trigger there, and I'm going to go ahead and just drop the hammer real quick so we can look at it. And now the first thing I'll do is I will go ahead and open up the loading gate, and look there. You can see there are rounds inside this gun. So I'll turn it towards the camera here so you can see that there are actual rounds in there. Once again, I'm keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction, keeping my finger out and away from the trigger guard area. And now the first thing I'm going to do, because this gun is loaded, I've got to go ahead and cock the hammer to the half-cock position to be able to extract these rounds and be able to rotate the cylinder. So the half-cock position is basically 2 clicks back. You'll hear these on the microphone. 1, 2. There's my second click, and now I can rotate this cylinder freely. And while I do that, it'll advance to each one of the rounds, and I'm going to use the extractor rod, which is located down here next to the barrel, take my index finger, and I'm going to pull back on the extractor rod to eject each one of the rounds. There comes my first round, and I'll turn the cylinder to the next round, and again, and I'm going to go around all the way through, and each one of these rounds I'm going to visually inspect that it is coming out, and that the chamber is in fact empty. And I'm never really going to assume to count them and to think that I know. I'm just going to keep on going around until I know that I went around and around enough. And always double check. It's a good idea to know that the gun is in fact empty. Now I can just kind of turn it around a lot. And this gun is now empty, as you can see, as I'll turn it around and around. Now, to lower the hammer on this gun, you basically have to pull it back all the way. Now, maintaining a firm grip with your thumb on the hammer, release the hammer, and slowly drop the hammer all the way down. Then you can close the loading gap back up, and you know that you have an unloaded Colt 22 Scout pistol. Now, let's move on to our next gun, which is a larger single-action revolver, but it is, in fact, a single-action revolver. This is a Freedom Arms 454 Casull. This is a very large hunting firearm, as you may expect, because it shoots such a very large caliber. You can tell, once again, that to keep this gun and to maintain the fact that it is unloaded, I'm going to keep the barrel pointed in a safe direction. I'm going to keep my finger out and away from the trigger area. And I've got to open up the loading gate first to look inside there. Now, I see that I do have an empty chamber there, but that doesn't mean all the other chambers are empty. So what I've got to do is look inside, and to do that, I'm going to have to half-cock the hammer. Once again, there's going to be 2 clicks here. You'll hear them on the microphone. 1, 2. Now this allows me to rotate the cylinder. There's an empty chamber there, and there is a round. So now I want to eject that round. Once again, on a single action revolver, it will have an ejection rod down here. You can use your index finger on your left hand is a good hand to use. Pull that back, and you'll see it will knock the round straight up out. And now I want to advance the cylinder. Let the rod down and advance the cylinder again. And here, I'll show you this over here on the camera side. Here it comes. And there is a good shot of the extractor rod. And now I know that, in fact, I have an unloaded gun. I'll go around and around there, and I'll make sure that there are no rounds in there. Okay, so I'll close the loading gate back up. I'm going to cock the hammer all the way. I'm going to maintain a good firm grip on it. I'm going to squeeze the trigger, and I'm going to lower the hammer very slowly. And I've got an unloaded Freedom Arms 454 Casull. Next up here is a Smith & Wesson 686 revolver, very similar to the Model 66. As you can see, these guns are very similar. The difference, of course, is the length, and there's a couple other internal mechanism differences as far as the way it's manufactured, but they look the same. The Model 686 fires a .357 cartridge. It's a 4-inch barrel on this particular gun. Once again, keeping the muzzle and barrel pointed in a safe direction. I'm going to turn over on the left side. Very similar release latch. Once again, push the cylinder release latch forward, reach through, open the cylinder, and then let the rounds drop right out or push them out like so. And this gun is unloaded, so I'll turn it up and put it down. All right, the next pistol here is a Dan Wesson 744 44 Magnum revolver. And the reason I want to show you the Dan Wesson firearm is because there is a different latch mechanism for opening the cylinder release button. It's a little different than it is on either the Ruger or the Smith & Wesson. You can see here, once again, keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction, keeping my finger off the trigger. I'm going to turn it over on the left side of the frame, and the cylinder release button is not here, but in fact in front. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this down and reach through with my left hand and pop the whole mechanism out. And you can see here that there are 6 empty chambers there, and so this gun is unloaded. And now I can close it back up and put it down. Let's move forward now to some of our automatic pistols. The first pistol I will show you here is a Ruger. This is a Mark II Ruger with a bull barrel. It's stainless steel, as you can see. This Ruger is somewhat different than some of the other automatic pistols you'll find because of the position of the magazine release button. It is located at the bottom of the frame. Now, once again, I'm going to keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Can't say that enough. Keep my finger off of the trigger. I'm going to turn the gun over, and I'm going to look down here. There is, in fact, a magazine release button right here, and to open this, you depress it forward or just push back on it. The magazine will come out, and there it is. Now, you can, of course, do that upside down, too. And out it comes. And there are no rounds in there. Now, to look into the chamber of this gun, you can see there are 2 little pieces of steel sticking out here on the slide, the internal slide. I'll pull back, and I'll be able to look right down into the barrel here. And hopefully the camera will get you a good shot of that. You can see there are no rounds in there. You always want to visually inspect the barrel to make sure there are no rounds in the chamber area. Let the slide forward, and I will drop the hammer. And the gun is now empty, keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction. Next gun we're going to look at is a 1911 style 9mm pistol built by Star. Now, I say 1911 style because you've probably seen a gun look like this. Colt has manufactured the 1911 45 caliber, which is this gun, for just about 90 years now. And this is the Star. This is a copy, but it shoots a 9mm cartridge. So let's look at the Star 1911 style pistol first. This is actually called a BKM Star. First thing I want to do, of course, is keep my finger off of the trigger and away from the trigger guard area. Keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Turn it over and look on the left side here. There's a magazine release button. I will depress that button with my thumb. The magazine starts to make its way out. I can pull the magazine out. Now I want to go ahead and visually inspect the chamber. So I've got to grab here with my thumb and index finger, my left hand, and pull back and look inside the chamber. And you can see there are no rounds in there. Now, for this gun, if I were to hand this to someone, a good way to do that is to actually get the slide back the whole way and put the slide stop up. And the slide stop is right here. And that way, when you hand the gun to someone, it looks like this. And it's actually caught up on the slide stop. And it maintains the fact that you can look in there, and anybody who picks the gun up off the table As soon as they pick it up, they're going to be able to look in there. They're going to see that there are no rounds in it. So this is a very proper way to hand a gun to someone with the slide already pulled back and basically locked back with the slide lock button there on the side. To lower the slide, I have to go ahead and release the button. I can just pull down on that or gently pull back on a slide, push down on the button, and let it go forward. Now this gun also has a hammer safety, a magazine safety. The hammer will not drop unless the magazine is placed inside the frame. So I can't drop the hammer manually. It's just going to stay up for these purposes here. I'll just leave it off for now. And that'll bring us to our next gun, which is this Colt 45 pistol. And this is an automatic pistol, as you can see, semi-automatic pistol, single action only. The way this works, basically, again, keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction, I'm going to turn the gun over and I'm going to look on the left side of the frame, and we do, in fact, have a magazine release button here located on the left side. I can push that with my thumb, and out comes the magazine. Put the magazine on the ground, keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction. I can go ahead and visually inspect the chamber area by grasping the slide with my thumb and forefinger, open up and look inside, and I'll see that there are no rounds in there. Now, once again, this has a slide stop button, so I can pull back on the slide and push up the button with my thumb, and you can see how it catches the slide, and that way I can visually inspect and know that there are no rounds in the chamber here. This gun is basically empty, and it is now safe to be handled or to be stored or whatever else you want to do with it if you want to go to the range. To drop the slide, I'll have to go ahead and, with my left thumb, push down the slide stop, let the slide drop, and now I will just go ahead and squeeze the trigger, keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction. And voila, the gun is now unloaded. One last 45 that I'm going to show you is a wide body, new generation 45. It's built on a wide body frame. It's basically the same gun, except it has a polymer frame, and it features a wider frame which carries more rounds in the magazine. I'll push the magazine release button right here. Out comes the magazine. You can see this holds 14 rounds. Same principle. Grasping the slide with my thumb and index finger, pull back, look inside there. I see that there are no rounds in there. I can go ahead and drop the hammer, and I have a safe pistol. Next gun I want to show you is this Ruger P85, and this will be our last gun of the day. It is a double action first shot and single action second shot from there on in. Basically, this gun the principle is the same. I'll keep my finger off the trigger area, keep the gun pointed in a safe direction, turn over, and again on the left side of the frame, you'll find the magazine release button, and I'm going to go ahead and just push this button straight down, and out comes the magazine. Put the magazine down. Now I'll go ahead and grasp the slide with my thumb and forefinger, just pull it straight back, and I can look inside there and see that there are no rounds in the chamber area. I know I've got an unloaded pistol. Drop that down. I can drop the hammer with the trigger, or I can use the decocking button, which is right there. And now I've got an unloaded pistol that is safe and ready to be stored. I cannot emphasize enough that whenever you pick up a gun off the table, no matter when you last touched it, if it was minutes or hours or days, always pick the gun up, keep it pointed in a safe direction, open up the action, whether it be the cylinder, you want to open it up and visually inspect it, or whether it's the slide on an automatic pistol. You want to drop the magazine, open up the slide, and look inside there. Always keep it pointed in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you have ascertained that it is, in fact, unloaded. That's going to avoid many accidents and a lot of tragedies.
Owning a firearm for personal protection is a tremendous responsibility and privilege. We, as law-abiding citizens of the United States of America, have an opportunity that few people in any other country can enjoy. We know that we have the ability to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and our property when jeopardized unlawfully by another.
The purpose of this program has been to provide you with basic shooting techniques for you to better understand the ownership and use of handguns for target shooting and self-defense. Please review the tape as often as necessary for you to become familiar with these techniques. Hopefully, you'll never have to use your firearms for self-defense.
The most important aspect of firearms ownership is safety. Firearm accidents are a tragedy that can and should be prevented, especially when they involve children. If you have a handgun at home, I urge you to have a safe box similar to this one. If you are unfamiliar with any aspect of your firearm or shooting techniques, take the time to ask someone.
Go to your local gun shop and ask one of the clerks or the store owner. Most of them have the answers, and most are going to be very helpful. I'm Lenny Magill.
And I'm Tammy Magill. Thanks for watching, and safe shooting.
The good. The great. The very best. What separates the good shooters from the very best? What makes a national champion? A repeat winner? A shooter who pulls it all together consistently to be in the running almost every time he or she steps to the line? Hello, I'm Lenny Magill. Over the past 10 years, I've shot, attended, and videotaped hundreds of stages of fire. More importantly, I've watched literally thousands of hours of videotape of the best IPSC shooters to ever live. I've talked with and interviewed the world's greatest competition shooters, and I've come to the realization that IPSC competition shooting is not a sport of seconds, but fractions of a second. Now, I know that may sound like a cliche, but hear me out. The top shooters in the sport do everything a little bit faster, a little bit more accurately, with a little bit less movement than the rest of the pack. And when you extrapolate that over 3, 5, or 12 stages of fire, what you get is a rather large difference. The purpose of this video is to point out and illustrate the techniques that are used by the world's greatest shooters as they go through various stages of fire.
Stand by.
Assisting me in this effort is Brian Enos, a top competition shooter in his own right, but more importantly, a student of the sport of IPSC. Enos has trained side by side with other top shooters, including Rob Latham and Doug Koenig. He'll help analyze some of the footage you'll see of the world's best shooters. And speaking of these shooters, in this program, we'll look at and analyze the techniques and styles of Rob Latham, USPSA Nationals champion, World IPSC champion, NRA Bianchi Cup winner, overall one of the greatest shooters to ever live. Jerry Barnhart, USPSA Nationals champion, Steel Challenge champion, World's Shoot-Off Champion and one of the winningest shooters over the past 8 years. Doug Koenig, IPSC World Champion, NRA Bianchi Cup Champion, and Masters 3-Gun Champion. Matt McLaren, USPSA's National Champion and World IPSC Champion. Todd Jarrett, USPSA Nationals Champion. And Kippy Boykin, USPSA Women's Champion, along with many other shooters who have helped make this program possible. We'll look at and analyze the top shooters and find out what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. Welcome to IPSC Secrets. John Bianchi is the most recognized personality in the firearms industry. Known internationally as the father of the modern holster and the master of concealment, John Bianchi is responsible for the design and production of an incredible 20 million holsters, belts, and accessories during his 40-year career. In the early 1950s, John Bianchi started as a police officer, making holsters in his garage. His business expanded rapidly, and by the mid-1970s, Bianchi International had grown to be the industry leader, occupying this 60,000 square foot facility in Temecula, California. John Bianchi's numerous achievements include authoring the industry bestseller, Blue Steel and Gun Leather, creating an international pistol shooting competition, the Bianchi Cup, as well as over 200 patents, trademarks, and copyrights. His holsters were used in virtually all Hollywood movie productions from the mid-1960s. But perhaps his most important contribution is the design, development, and manufacture of the M12 military holster, currently in use by the United States and NATO forces worldwide. John Bianchi sold Bianchi International in 1989 and now personally handcrafts custom Western gun belts that are considered to be works of art that are truly becoming collector's items. These are available through his new custom shop, Frontier Gun Leather. This program is Volume 3 of a 3-part series featuring the artistry and secrets of advanced Western holster making. John Bianchi shares with you more than 40 years of experience in working with leather, tools, and supplies to make the highest quality holsters and belts in the world. The information you're about to see can be applied to all leather-making projects with particular emphasis on holsters and belts. Now, here's John Bianchi. The revolver has been around for more than 150 years, and it's still considered to be one of the most reliable defensive handguns one could own. Mastering revolvers. Right here. There are many reasons for owning a handgun, whether it's for competition, self-defense, hunting, or just plinking. One common denominator that all handgun owners share is a quest for accuracy. There's nothing quite like shooting an extremely accurate handgun. Now, I believe that all high-quality, name-brand handguns are inherently accurate from the factory. The key is understanding how to tune the handgun, the ammo you wish to shoot, the conditions in which you're going to shoot, and the intended purpose. And that's what this program's all about, helping you get the most accuracy from your handguns. I'm Lenny Magill. Welcome to Sighting in Handguns. In 1950, Jim Clark Sr. founded his business on a simple philosophy: to improve the accuracy and reliability of Ruger 22 semi-automatic pistols and 1911 style handguns. He pioneered and perfected the production and distribution of a 1911 style handgun that feeds and shoots the .38 Special cartridge. That's right, I said the .38 Special cartridge, a rimmed case. Jim Clark Sr. is much more than just a gunsmith. He's an inventor and innovator, as well as a champion competition shooter, becoming the first civilian to ever win the NRA Bullseye Championship. Today, more than 45 years later, Clark Custom Guns is one of the premier custom gunsmith shops in the world. Their work now includes custom services for a wide variety of firearms, including Ruger 22 pistols and 10/22 rifles, revolvers, 1911 style handguns for competition and self-defense, as well as custom work for shotguns and rifles. They also manufacture and sell high-quality, high-tolerance parts for 1911 framed handguns, Ruger Mark II pistols, and 10/22 rifles, along with complete drop-in barreled actions for Ruger 10/22 rifles. Jim Clark Jr. and his sister Kay Clark Mitchell have followed the path trailblazed by their father. Jim is possibly the greatest three-gun competition shooter to ever live, winning the Soldier of Fortune three-gun World Championship 4 different times. Kay is the World IPSC Champion and three-time USPSA Nationals Champion. They're joined by Jerry Mitchell, internationally known as the fastest revolver shooter in the world. Together, they oversee the operation and management of Clark Custom Guns and their 150-acre shooting facility known as the Shootout, located in Princeton, Louisiana. This facility offers complete firearms training for rifle, pistol, and shotgun. Jim Clark Sr., Jim Clark Jr., Kay Clark Mitchell, and Jerry Mitchell are some of the greatest minds in the gunsmithing and competition shooting industries. With over 100 years of collective experience, a complete machine shop, a 150-acre full facility range, instruction classes for rifle, pistol, and shotgun for competition and self-defense, and complete gunsmithing services to increase accuracy and reliability in your firearms, Clark Custom Guns is uniquely qualified to present the information you're about to see. Speed. Awesome speed. There's nothing quite like it. Nothing so impressive as when man and his weapon become one. What's it take to develop this skill? For you to be fast on the draw and fast from shot to shot? Well, that's what this program is all about. We'll look at some of the fastest shooters in the world, compare their equipment, their techniques and methods, and talk with them one-on-one, all in an effort to find out how to shoot fast and accurately. Hi, I'm Lenny Magill. Shooting fast is easy. It's when you have to shoot fast and accurately that it becomes a lot more difficult. Now, I believe there are certain things you can do and concentrate on that are going to help you shoot faster. And that's what this program is all about.